Welcome to our channel. These short commentaries are designed to touch on a verse of Scripture, to look at the most recent news in the Christian world, and to explore an aspect of a cultish belief system. I want to point out for Scripture 1 Chronicles 12, verse 32. It's a description of David as he chooses men for his army. And it says, of Issachar, those who had understanding of the times, to know what Israel ought to do, 200 chiefs and all their kindred under their command. So the question for today really is, do we know what time it is? Because I think Christianity as a whole is in a fairly precarious situation, and we don't appreciate it. In my young adult life, I didn't understand that Christians weren't the majority of people, because most everybody identified at least as Christians. And in 1950, about 91% of people claimed to be, or they self-identified as Christian. That held fairly constant until the 80s, when all of a sudden it took a steep decline. This decade, in 2020, 65% of the American population self-identifies as Christian. Unfortunately, if you drill down on that and you ask people what they actually believe, about 6% of the population holds conservative Christian beliefs across the board. So the upshot of that is that we really need to be very serious about reaching out and evangelizing, and we also need to be particularly serious about teaching people the Bible and encouraging them to read the Bible as much as possible. That is incredibly important. One of the reasons that is so important is that our culture is falling apart. There's a lot of crime, there's a lack of virtue, and that virtue came from Christianity. And it is not until we establish once again a biblical worldview that we will see the kind of virtue that is required to have a democracy. If you don't have virtue, you can't have freedom, and you wind up with a totalitarian government because people don't have enough self-restraint to be able to behave in a society. In regard to church settings and cultishness, there are a couple of verses I want to share. One is Matthew 20, 25 through 28. It says, but Jesus called them to him and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones are tyrants over them. It will not be so among you, but whoever wishes to be great among you must be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first among you must be your slave, just as the Son of Man came, not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many. 1 Peter says, attend to the flock of God that is in your charge, exercising the oversight, not under compulsion, but willingly, as God would have you do it, not for sordid gain, but eagerly. Do not lord it over those in your charge, but be an example for the flock. And in 2 Corinthians 1:24, we're told, not that we lord it over your faith, but we are workers with you for your joy, because you stand firm in the faith. If you find yourself in a church situation where you are being controlled and somebody's attempting to micromanage your life, and to ask you to do things that you should be able to decide to do on your own, you are perhaps in a cultish setting, and you need to evaluate whether or not the pastor or the pastor's staff has a reasonable relationship with you. One of the things that cults do is they transfer that power that that exists within the church, and they assume power and control over you, when indeed they should be working alongside of you as co-workers and co-laborers. So if you find yourself in that kind of situation, evaluate and see what kind of response it calls for from you. Well, God bless you. Please be in touch with us and visit our Facebook page. Have a great day.